Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pisapia. With me, as always, is the Welsh, and today we're going to take a look at some of the early ranks and tiers. We're going to go through the first round, second round, where Welsh and I might differ. We spent a lot of time recently doing some deep dives on some deeper players, but now we're going to talk about some of the big boys who are at the top of drafts and help you kind of choose, because that is how you are building your teams. There aren't wrong answers necessarily, but maybe there's answers with different opinions here. And we're going to give you opinions as we always do here in the program. We're also going to talk about our top 10 starting pitchers. Are there any differences there? And we're going to use a little bit of dissenting opinions between Welsh and myself to see which players some of us are a little higher on than the other, and vice versa. And Welsh, you look like you're fresh off the golf course. I'd ask you what your handicap is, but we've been friends for a very long time, so I know of your many, many deficits. But seriously, what'd you shoot today?
Yeah, 174,000. No, I'm not a very good golfer. I'm tall, and I've been told I need custom clubs, so I can't hit.
Oh wow!
I can hit irons, but I can't hit a driver because I
is
just
like
think
mini
I need
golf
custom.
a nightmare for you? Or you show up to the mini golf? No,
I can putt. I can hit irons, but I can't do anything else. So I'm pretty cool to be with at like Top Golf, but anything else I'm not going to be super great with. By the way, I just want to point something out. As cool as Fantasy Pros is, I have been working here full time for almost 2 months, but I've been here for a couple of years. Every single day, I learn about something else cool, a new tool. I don't want to like placate this stuff. Hey, we're going to tell you about the cool tools, why you should use them. We work here, but also they're awesome.
For the tools. No, we don't do that. We just
use
them.
Pooh, put your draft on it.
I love the ShamWow.
Like, I didn't know about a tool that we're going to use today, which is essentially going to turn Joe and I into like a Mortal Kombat or like, a Street Fighter, like a Hadouken. Like, we're going to put our ranks up against each other. I guess it would be this way, like that. There's a dissenting tool where we literally, sorry, I had to find the right direction. Like,
it's reversed, so it's hard for us to look at each other. But
yeah, that actually would be a great, we should do like the shot of the episode.
Why don't we do that?
Like
Rocky. We just.
Yeah.
All right, there's your freeze frame, everybody. I'm sure that was really good on the podcast, by the way. I'm sure people love that on the audio-only version of the show just now.
But I had no idea about this tool and what we're going to do, and this is what we did. We literally were able to click the dissenting tool on Fantasy Pros. We clicked Joe's and mine, and it tells us where our biggest differences are. We also can do it against ECR if you want. Here's a cool thing that you can do, even if you're not a ranker. Go in. Maybe you really dig Joe's ranks. Hey, our buddy Scott Bogman, fourth in accuracy in draft rankings, we just found out. Mike Mayer as well. Well, guess what? You can go in, you can click their name and see where they're different against me, Joe, or ECR. You can play around with it. It's a cool tool that we're going to add for our big old rankings tiers episode that I'm very excited that we're doing, especially because it's like it's kind of like it's a battle versus you and I.
Battle. Well, it's a friendly battle. It's a friendly battle. It's like a game of golf. It's a friendly battle, and afterwards we all go out for cocktails at the lounge. But dissenting opinions is something I use all the time for the NFL shows when I'm building them to see like where Debro and Erickson are different from each other on things when we're doing some of those rank shows. But for baseball, I was like, hey, Welsh, have you used dissenting opinions for baseball? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, oh yeah, we got it for baseball too. And it is very useful. And shout out to Scott Bogman. Number 4 overall. You just recently did the mock draft show with him a couple days ago. That's on the YouTube channel. Go back and watch that. So pay attention to what Bogman's saying. He was 4th overall last year in the ranks that just came out. Beat me. You were 12th. You were excellent. Mike Mayer was 5th. I don't want to like pump him up too much, but I was 23rd. So I'm a disgrace to myself and others. Where's Kelly? I didn't see where the penguin ended up. I got to find that. But in the meantime, while we're looking for that, before we get to the tiers and whatnot, don't forget you have a chance to win some free stuff here. Jazz Chisholm autographed jersey, Miami Marlins own star outfielder, courtesy of bettingpros.com. Your place to start betting smarter, not harder, which by the way, on Betting Pros, Welsh and I are going to have an amazing MLB preview coming up in March. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. But in the meantime, if you want to win the Jazz Chisholm jersey, subscribe to Fantasy Pros MLB YouTube right now. Click subscribe, ring the bell till it goes ding. That's it. That's all you got to do. Comment below on the video and you are entered to win the Jazz Chisholm jersey. So comment with your thoughts. Keep it clean though, folks. We run a tight ship over here. And that's all you got to do to win the Jazz Chisholm jersey. Yes, Welsh.
During leading off last year, we had a bet going. When we hit 15,000 subscribers, Joe has to do something. May I present a double down? Let you and I pick a number.
Oh, no.
By the start of leading off, if we could get to, what do you think is reasonable? 16 or 17,000?
I want to push the envelope to 17,000. That was my baseball number, 17. So I feel like I always wore 17 when I played. So I think that would be a nice number. So
I was thinking
what's
Joe
the
Kelly,
double down? Because 15,000 was me wearing the wig for the show on leading off. And that's already happening. So I can't imagine what you have in your brain.
I'm thinking we both wear wigs and we both rock the mustaches. We did the mustaches last year,
but we do it we got to
with
14,000
with wigs. We do wigs and mustaches.
All right,
yeah. And that would be the first leading off of the year we would do together if we get to that number. 17,000 subs.
Son of a bee, I'm in. Let's go. All right. So there you go. 17,000. There you have it, everybody.
Mustache rides for everybody.
Mustache rides and wigs. That's what's going to happen here. Let's get to dissenting opinions. Here's some players I like more than the Welsh. Luis Castillo, a 12-spot difference from each other. It appears I'm higher on the closers, too, which is weird because you're Mr. Closer, so I don't know how that happened. I have to go back to my rankings to fix that. Christian Walker doesn't get enough love from you or anybody else. I'm higher on people than him. I am higher on Max Fried. It's a scary one. Adley Rutschman's the other one. And of course, no surprise to anyone who's been listening to the shows, I'm higher than Welsh on Alex Bregman by 30 spots. So
if you would have asked me, you have one player to guess who our descent is going to be, I would have said Alex Bregman without a question.
Hate a 30, 100, 100 guy? Like that's
because he's not a 30. No, he's not going to be a 30. He's going to be like a 20, 90, 90.
No, he's not 20. He's a 25, 27 guy. Anyway, let's talk about Rutschman because, you know, I am not the big catcher guy. I was surprised so much that Rutschman was that guy that was the big difference between us. I'm 16 spots higher on Adley Rutschman. I do believe he is a tier unto himself. We kind of had this discussion when we did the infield guide. If you missed that, go back and listen to the previous programs. Watch them on YouTube. We did the ultimate infield, outfield, and we just did the starting pitcher guide too with Nick Pollock. They're all up there. You can binge watch all of them. He is a tier unto himself, yet I am higher on Adley Rutschman than you. That was kind of surprising to me. Is that surprising to you?
No, not at all. I mean, everybody's going to be higher on pretty much any catcher with me. I agree. He is a tier of his own. Two catchers, I might prioritize him. But even then, I'm in Tout right now. Tout draft and hold, 50-team draft and hold we're doing. And it's two catchers because that's how they roll. Ugh. And I didn't go at Adley in the second, the third, or the fourth. And I think he ended up going in the third or fourth. It's just about catchers. Right now, I believe right now, as you're listening to this, you can go over to FantasyPros and you can find the Welsh's top draft targets. There's an article for you, and there will be a player at every single position if you care what I have to say. The catcher on that list is not ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not in the top 7 or 8 because I don't want to pay high prices for catchers. I could be wrong about this. And of course, like the top guy at a position like Adley is uniquely great. But I think the gaps of production between the starters and catchers is the smallest gap of any fantasy position out there and that's including closers, starting pitchers. There's just, the gap is so small that I think I can get a catcher that can produce 80 to 85% of the production of like catcher number 2 or catcher number 3. So I'm not surprised you would have a catcher higher than me.
Counterpoint to that, and I guess this is skewed because I play in more points-based leagues as opposed to like the roto world. Yeah. Because of all the hits, because he plays so much, because of the RBI, the run potential, the power, everything he does, and also the 90-plus walks last year. Like, Rutschman to me is the tier unto himself and worth a little bit of a premium. Now, in two catcher leagues, I think especially so. Sure. In head-to-head points, you don't typically get the two catchers. In a deeper league, too, if you're like my home league, right? It's 15 teams. It's me, it's Chris Meany. It's some friends of ours, actually, in the industry. Which like, so it's like, it's some really good fantasy players, friends of mine. And I don't know. I think I probably invited you and you're like, nah, I'm in too many leagues. I don't want to play with you.
I might have said it just like that. I'm like, next year.
I didn't want to. I'm too busy with spring trading.
Oh, is it points though?
Yeah, head-to-head points.
Oh, no, that's why I'm not in it. I'm sorry. That's why I'm not in it.
So I asked you once, and you said, yeah, you want to do it. And I said, fine. I only asked one time. I'm not going to be belligerent about it. But in those formats, he becomes very special. And I think that we haven't seen the complete version of Adley Rutschman. Yeah, like I think there's another gear in this guy that we have yet to scratch the surface of how good he's going to be. He is, I think, a really interesting MVP candidate this year too, because he's also a catcher, because of everything he does. I'm still team Julio, but if I'm going to hedge on somebody else, that would be an interesting one for me. And carrying that over into fantasy, again, I do think I look at Real Muto and I'm starting to worry he's in his 30s now. Like, what's that decline? Does it start to creep in? Will Smith's still in the middle of that lineup. It's good. But after that, like, there's some guys that have some power, like the Alvarez's. Moreno's an average guy. But I want the total package. The total package to me is going to be Rutschman, because I'm looking ahead to the projectability, not so much on what even last year was. I think there's more coming when it comes to
I'm not going to disagree. Again, he is his own tier. But he is his guy. If I were to take a catcher in the top 100, it's only Adley. But everything I do, catchers fall. Bogman and I, we just did a mock draft on ESPN. ESPN's platform. I got J2 Realmuto in a 12 team at 149. I get Gabby Moreno at the end of drafts. He got Sean Murphy in the 200. I just don't think the gap is that big where I'm like, okay, Adley is so much better than the next guy that is worth more than taking whatever said hitter is there versus that tier. I'm down with Adley. I understand why you're doing it. Points leagues, he gets a little bit of a boost. It is really just more about like my thoughts on the position than anything else, but he's the best. Why do you love Aaron Nola? Why do you love Aaron Nola?
You must have read my mind. Nola was the next guy I want to talk about, and then we'll switch over to the guys you like more than me. Nola, I have 12 spots higher than you. What I like about Nola is the consistency, and I'm, you know me, I'm already digging very deep into the betting world of baseball right now, and I've already placed maybe more bets than I should have, but I don't think so. Like, I think
Joe's first thing, by the way, on the podcast, we got on. I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Joe?" And he's like, "I'm making so many bets." I'm like, "Okay."
Not even. I think there was 5 I made, but they were very calculated bets.
That's a lot of bets in just a random day.
Not real. Well, look, when Matt Olson to lead the league in homers is at plus 850, you bet it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it? Where is that?
On FD right now. But anyway, I digress. Aaron Nola. The consistency of Aaron Nola these last few years, I keep thinking about the Phillies and the Phillies of this team that just, every year just shows up and figures it out, and they are able to, get hot at the right time, get in the playoffs. And I think, like, my money right now, I haven't placed it yet, but my money's leaning towards the Phillies to win this division this year. I'm concerned a little bit about the Braves' middle of the rotation. I don't believe in Morton anymore. Sale is a reclamation project to me. But if you're looking at what this guy's done the last couple of years, I understand people are scared away from the 4.46 ERA, but the xERA was 3.77. The xFIP was 3.63. I think he was a little unlucky last year. And when you're talking about one of the most consistent guys, we just talked about it on one of the shows we just did, over the last 5 years, Aaron Nola is one of the top 5 guys in strikeouts. And he's going later than some of these other aces. He's going after guys like Yamamoto who haven't thrown a pitch yet in the big leagues. And I just think that's straight out wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the consistency in my eyes is more like his every other year thing. That's the problem. And that's why a lot of people are back in. But
if you take the every other year thing, Welsh, again, it's like, that's fine. But you know what? The every other year thing back 2 years ago, when his ERA in 2021 was 4.63, his xERA was 3.35. His xFIP was 3.37. So it's actually not him. It's just he's got bad luck every other year. And that's not something that I think you can quantify and saying, well, that's going to happen all that time on these odd years. Like, that's just kind of silly. All I care is about the consistency of that xERA and xFIP is in that mid 3s. So when things go awry, at least I still have all the strikeout potential and the win potential the Phillies are going to give me.
Yeah, maybe. The problem is his expected ERA is the 3rd highest of his career, and the 3.71 is the highest over the last 4 years, and that's a 27 that prime range. While a significant drop in strikeouts. As a matter of fact, it is if you don't count his first 2 seasons, so since 2017 on, it's the lowest strikeout percentage he's had. To his credit, he's also lowered his walks a little bit. But I don't like the strikeout potential. The low 90s guy, he's always thrown the sinker a whole bunch. He went primary curveball this year, which was a really good whiff pitch. But I don't know, what is that transition going to be? Is he going to go back to being more primary sinker? Maybe that'll lower the ERA. I guess I'm just unimpressed with Aaron Nola. I have him really low. I think, actually, if you look in FantasyPros ranks.
With a guy who has had, again, throw out 2020, he's had 200 or more strikeouts, Welsh, in every single season since 2018. How is that not impressive?
I mean, the innings are consistent. That is the big thing. The
ERA, the strikeouts are consistent. The ERA might fluctuate, but geez,
the ERA is not consistent. The ball's getting hit harder. He's pressing more in the pitch mix change from curveball to this last year. I just don't know if he's into that. Where he sits, it's like Bobby Miller, there's Yuri Perez, there's Grayson Rodriguez, there's Zach Eflin. Like I'd rather take shots in that range of where he is, because maybe he does turn it around. You are right. The expected ERA, it's not awful. And if he gets to be a mid-3 guy again, he's going to just eat up a bunch of innings. He's going to have some wins and he'll get some strikeouts. Maybe it's the boringness of it, but I've moved off of Aaron Nola as he's getting a little bit older. He's just getting hit harder.
Totally
the
fair.
strikeouts are going away, and I just have a lot less interest. I am one of the lowest rankers on him on Fantasy Pros, though.
Well, this is why we're having this opinion, because I think it's important to throw out some of these names that we have the big differences on. Let's talk about Welsh's. Obviously, he's higher on Trey Turner than me. No surprise. You've been higher on Trey Turner than me since Trey Turner was in this league.
I don't even like Trey Turner that much right now. That's just
a
product of it.
I always like him less. However much you like him, I like him less. You're higher on Ellie De La Cruz than me. I keep fluctuating with my Ellie ranking up and down. Like, it depends on my week. You know, the problem is I keep going back and I watch the highlights of certain things. I'm like, man, he looks so good. And other highlights where he's fooled on pitches and things like, oh, like I'm trying to figure that out.
Of him hitting the BP ball of Hunter Green that smashed Hunter Green's car. He hit a ball foul about that, and it broke his own window. I'll also say Ozzy. He's been working with Barry. I'll say Ozzy Smith, Barry Larkin a whole lot, which I like. But sorry, let's keep going through the names.
Well,
I understand the LE.
Let's go with O'Neal Cruz, because there's a massive gap there between us with O'Neal Cruz. It's almost 50 spots different now. And again, for me, it's also just some of those similar things from Ellie De La Cruz, which is the swing and miss is there. I know the upside's there. I know the talent's there. The Pirates are slowly sort of putting things together a little bit. Like, I feel like the Pirates, you know, you even saw it last year. They were hot at the beginning of the year. So here's your chance to sell everybody on Cruz again, because O'Neal Cruz is a player that I know everyone was hot on last year. It does feel very post-hype sleeper, but in terms of cost, do you think it's post-hype sleeper in terms of ADP?
I think that's specifically one of the reasons. Like, based on your own rank, if you actually see Ellie somewhere in the 70s and O'Neal is in the 90s, there's not much of a difference, but it is based on the cost of Cruz, where you guys are taking your risks. Ellie is kind of a risk. Jazz Chisholm is kind of a risk. O'Neal Cruz is behind all those guys. We saw him after that really bad start with the bad strikeouts at the end of 2022, cut the strikeouts over that last month to make better contact. Then at the beginning of 2023, he did the same thing. The strikeouts were not there. He was making his contact. Then he gets hurt, misses the entire year. We rebound. He's a bigger power guy than Ellie De La Cruz, if we're making that comp, which is pretty common here. But how often do you see 20-20 or 25-25 guys come at any type of a discount? They're usually built up. That's not the case here. If O'Neal Cruz meets the expectations of projections, ATC, BAT-X, and he's over 20-20 and he hits 240, he will only be able to beat his value of where you draft him. He will not be able to go backwards. RBIs could be maybe at a little bit of a minimum. We'll see where he's batting in the order based on runs, but he's going to steal 15 to 25, and I legit think he's going to hit 30. Massive, one of the highest max EV guys out there with a cut down strikeouts, and that lineup is not that bad. You know, Brian Hayes is hitting the ball a little bit harder. Brian Reynolds is a great source at the top of the lineup. I think he is one of the best deals out there until he's not, which people like me that are into it are going to make him not a deal. But it is hard to come by 25-25 or 20-20s at any type of a discount, and you're getting that outside the 80s. So I want O'Neal Cruz on every single one of my teams, and I think I have to be the highest in the world on him as well as ranks. This is just going to be one of those guys that I'm fully in on. All
right. Again, I like the player, but I'm looking at the ADP. He's going, 87th overall in the consensus ADP on Fantasy Pros, which you can see. It is, but Xander Bogaerts going 97. And Bogaerts,
but
I
pair
know,
them together.
is basic. Hold on.
Sorry.
That's fine. You can. But I would say that if I'm just looking for a straight up shortstop play, well, there's the guy that's giving me 20-20 with a better batting average, most likely, because the second half for Bogaerts was much better than the first half. He did that classic struggle with the big contract thing. So to me, I'm looking at that. I was like, do I want to take the risk of Cruz, even though maybe there is that 30 home run upside? Maybe it's there. Or do I want to settle in for give me the 20-20 280 guy? I'm going to take the 2020 280 guy 10 spots later. I'm just going to every time.
Yeah, and I think just real quick, I think
Sure.
There's also a balance everybody should do, or you should at least come to terms within your drafts, is find out where are the places that I'm going to take my shots. I don't think it's great to go in and be like, everybody's on the table. And then you're like, I'm taking Ellie and Cruz, and I'm taking Wyatt Langford, and I'm taking Jazz. And you want to like find the right spots to do that. O'Neal Cruz is one of those for me. One of those rookies, the Jackson Holidays, the Churios, like I like those two because the cost is so much later based on potential returns. I think it is harder to stomach like Ellie De La Cruz at his cost in the 20s or 30s or something like that and it not work out. When you take Cruz, you could have 2 pitchers and 3 hitters already. And then we've already proven that there's some great hitters behind that I don't think it absolutely demolishes like the scope of what your team could be, unlike taking a risk in those first couple rounds that could blow up in your face. So it is a little bit more beyond even just O'Neal Cruz. There could be other guys that you pick and choose, but I don't want to also take like Jazz and him and then a rookie. Like pick your spots.
All right, let's continue on with some of these guys. We'll pick one more out. CJ Abrams, you're 14 spots higher on than me. Jazz Chisholm, 18, but you've always been a Jazz guy. Tariq Skubal, no doubt there. Yamamoto and Mike Trout, you are 16 spots higher than me, which is funny because we just had this Chisholm-Trout debate. So is there a guy that stands out to you, Welsh? You feel like, this guy, like you want to plant your flag and be like, yeah, I'm higher on this guy and I believe in this guy because. Is it Abrams? Is it Chisholm? Is it Trout? Or is it one of the pitchers, Skubal or Yamamoto?
It's kind of been Yamamoto. I'll tell you, I'm trying to get a little bit of like the physicality out of my brain because like seeing him in person, like he is a smaller guy, but it's looked elite.
Everyone hate on the short guys, man. Like us short guys.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to. I saw Davey Garcia today over at the White Sox, and like that guy's 5'7". Like they list him at 5'9", and I was like, no, you're not. No, sir, you're not. And he's a reliever, and he was moved into a reliever spot. All of that aside,
I got to say, I like to look right in the eyes of major league players. I think that's a nice feeling for me.
Well, that would be one that you could do. You got a lot of relievers you could take a look at. But getting all that out ahead, we talked about that on the Ultimate Pitching Guide. Yamamoto's stuff looks like it's going to play high. I know Nick wasn't excited about the potential innings, but like Yamamoto and Trout, those are 2 players that I'm kind of honed in on this range. 2 very different players. I love Yamamoto as a 2. I think he's super safe as far as command, low whip numbers, good strikeout numbers. Dodgers are going to get a bunch of wins. It's just, is that going to be 140 or 160 or 180 innings? That's something you have to come to terms with. And Trout's another one I kind of think I planted a little bit of a flag on because you're getting him at the cheapest cost you've ever done before. And 35 plus homers on a regular playing time schedule seems in play. The only thing I worry about is this team being just such a pile of crap at the end of the year. They're just like, just go take a rest. And, we won't trade you, but we also won't play you. But I don't know. I feel like, again, this is like returns on lower costs is a lot easier for me to stomach. And I think I've been building teams that I can deal with a Cruz or I can deal with a Trout because I haven't taken a whole bunch of risks already.
All right, let's continue on here and take a look at the first round. Now, pretty much similar for us along with consensus. We both have Acuña 1 overall. We both have Bobby Witt Jr. at 2. We both have Julio at 3, Mookie Betts at 4, and Corbin Carroll at 5. Where we start to differ at 6, you have Fernando Tatis, and I have moved up Kyle Tucker into the 6th spot. So that's one difference. Again, minute difference. I have Tatis at 8, so we're splitting hairs. What's probably going to shock you is where I have Matt Olson ranked, which I have done a lot of work on this. And I've looked at a lot of first base, a lot of Matt Olson stats from last year too. I have him bumped up into the first round, and I understand where you're a little lower on him.
I mean, I think I'm actually like a little high on him still, but you are the leader of the fan club.
Today, I became the president of the fan club. I mean, if we're just going to look at the raw numbers from Olson, who was also a player in his prime, 127 runs last year, 139 RBI, 54 home runs. Now, I know he doesn't steal bases, so that's fine, but he did it 283. And I think, if you go around the most consensus people, most people will have Freddie Freeman ahead of Matt Olson. He's going 8th overall. Olson's going 14. And I don't want to just flat out say that's wrong, because I understand Freddie Freeman's going to give you, the stolen bases that he gave you last year. Okay, he stole 20 bags last year, 13 the year before. I don't know if that's sustainable at the age of Freddie Freeman, though. And I think too many people are getting too wrapped up in that and saying, oh, it's Freeman over Olson. If those stolen bases come back to 10, we're talking about a guy who hit 20 more homers, and I will take those 20 more homers over the 10 steals because I can find those 10 steals in 2024 Major League Baseball. So let's talk about Olson. He's a first round pick for me in the middle. What say you? Can I sell you on Matt Olson in that range?
I mean, you really don't have. Well, okay, on that range, you'd have to sell me.
I feel like I'm making a good argument for him. Like, I feel like I'm like laying it out there. Freeman always goes ahead of him. I don't think that should be the case anymore.
You know, the argument that I really like that you made is that the stolen bases don't need to be a big primary it doesn't need to be one of the top 2 focal points if you're going to make the case for Freddie Freeman over Olsen, because you can pick those up anywhere. Like, it's you throw a rock and you can pick up a guy that steals 12 bases or 15 bases now. So you're not wrong about that. But Freddie Freeman is like elite batting average guy. You come back to what you were talking about before with like points leagues. He's going to get tons of hits. You know, you can count on batting average, and he's most likely going to be hitting 3, and he's going to have Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts hitting in front. So the RBI opportunities could be absolutely massive, and you still have just great bats behind him. So, you know, run RBI could go through the roof, though they do with Olsen. The power isn't there to stolen bases. It's really a big batting average thing. So you don't have to sell me on Olsen because I want Olsen. Olsen is like a primary second round pick that I want in a lot of leagues. I don't need to wait on first. I will gladly take Matt Olsen, but you have to have it on the wheel. It's just over some of the other names, and I am prioritizing Freddie Freeman because I think Freddie Freeman is floor of floor. It is 5 categories. It's not elite power like I'm going to get with Matt Olsen, but batting average is exponentially better. I do get those stolen bases. I think the runs can be higher. RBI and homers are maybe a little bit of a difference. So selling on Olsen, no. In this range, yeah, a little bit.
All right, because you've got Freeman basically where I have Olsen. So you have Kyle Tucker, then Ohtani and Freeman. I have Kyle Tucker, Olsen, Fernando. I'm sorry, you have Tatis, Tucker, Ohtani, Freeman. I have going downwards Tucker, Olsen, Tatis, and Juan Soto. So
Ohtani was my big change. Ohtani was actually my big change that I've done more recently. And I'll be frank, if let's say he qualified in the outfield, I think it'd be hard to not have him as the number 2 overall player if you like really think about that. And that's what I'm dealing with. Like, should I really only have him at 8 if he qualifies at util? Is that really keeping me off of it right now?
Like, that's where I've got him.
That's where I had him.
I think that's reason. I think your conundrum is quite reasonable about that. Because you are locking a utility spot, but I always say the same thing. It's like, well, all those people complain about locking in util spots when David Ortiz and Nelson Cruz were banging. Like, who cares? Like, you're getting productivity. It doesn't matter. This is a guy that can win an MVP.
And they were what?
So, you know, they were banging. Bang, bang. You know, like Mick Foley.
You
know, yeah.
It's completely something different. Yeah, I got you.
I don't know what you were thinking about, but you know.
I'm silly goose. Over on let's look at the bat. What do you want, ATC or the bat X?
I've made the Welsh uncomfortable, folks.
You kind of shut me down. You shut me down a little bit. All right, we're gonna look at the bat X, Derek Carty's projection system. The bat X has Shohei Ohtani, 39 homers, 24 stolen bases, 107 runs, 104 RBI with a 293 batting average. That is the elite of elite of elite. And you could easily justify that over Julio Rodriguez, Corbin Carroll, his teammate Mookie Betts. He's going to steal more than Mookie, might hit more homers, as many run RBI, and is better batting average. Ohtani legit can be number 2. It's because if you draft him, you're out on Marcell Ozuna, you're out on like JD Martinez if you care, and you're kind of behind a little bit positionally. So from a pure bat standpoint, I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm making him 8, but there's a part of me that wants to put him up into that core like 4 or 3. And if he qualified at a position, I think he would.
If he did, I would agree with you, but he doesn't, so we can't. Not this year anyway. Look, and next year when he's pitching again, he'll probably be 2 or 1. Like, that's probably, I mean, depending on the format of whatever you're playing and how it allows. Now, we both have Soto over Judge. I have Ohtani between those two guys. The defining factor for me with Soto over Judge was the toe injury. Aaron Judge just came out and said, too, the rest of his career, he's going to have to manage this toe issue that he's got. That doesn't make me feel good. At the end of the day, like, if I've got to split hairs, and that's what you're doing here in the first round, you're splitting hairs, that's a big toe to be splitting. You know what I'm talking about? Like, the Aaron Judge thing, if this is something that costs him 15 games a year, that might not sound like a lot, but you know what it is? It's the difference of you missing a category by a few points. It's a difference of you losing a week or two in the middle of the season and missing out on playoffs, like, or even worse, if it happens at the end of a season and you miss playoffs. That was the defining factor for me. Was there something for you with Soto over Judge besides that?
Well, I just want to point, like, what you're saying is like pretty pretty astute because even beside like, hey, he could miss some of those games. He's already got something. Like that's even more. I don't even need to like think too much into it. Taking a guy that already has something at that high cost. That's why we're dinging Corey Seager. Corey Seager might not miss a single game. He's kind of noted like, not sure if he'll be back, but he might not miss any time and he could be back and everything's glorious. And Corey Seager was a guy that was creeping into the first round. But now we push back.
He's still in my first round now. Like I'm still wait and see about this.
I moved him back into the mid 20s. I actually just got him in tout in the third round.
Because at the end of the day, if he misses like a week, like who cares? It's the same stuff that people were doing early on with Machado that I thought was wrong.
But guys that have had prior injury stuff, having more things, that feels kind of icky. And that's kind of what...
Not just more, a chronic thing. I think that's the defining factor for me, where it's, again, it's not that I don't like Judge, but we are trying to define these small, minuscule differences between these great elite players. And to me, it's like, well, I just think Soto's going to play more games, so give me Soto.
I agree with that. And I mean, and also Soto just came off of like, career like homers and everything in a San Diego ballpark, and now he's going to go to New York. Like I'm optimistic.
San Diego ballpark where he never hit well.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that like he's going to ball out again, and we could be pushing. We're going to push high 30s, maybe even into 40s, lots of runs, lots of RBI. Like he steals some, and we don't have this lingering toe thing. So yeah, I mean, it all plays in that he is the guy over Judge.
All right, so the rest of yours after Judge: Jose Ramirez, Trey Turner, Matt Olson, and then Mr. Yordan Alvarez. The end for me after Aaron Judge is Freddie Freeman, Jose Ramirez, Corey Seager, and Spencer Strider. So right at the turn is where I have Strider and Garrett Cole. You don't have any pitchers in there, but I understand they're probably like right around the corner. But you have Trey Turner still, and I have Corey Seager. So I think that's the interesting debate. I never thought I'd get to this point here too, because even though I have never been the big Trey Turner guy, everybody always knows that. I just think in 2024, Trey Turner is just a little less special than he used to be because I can find stolen bases other places and I want the power. That's where I'm going now. And Corey Seager, I think, has a better chance to give me more power. I know he has injury issues every year too. Like I get the risk of Corey Seager as a first round pick, but Welsh, Turner over Seager, you've already made that decision so far. If Corey Seager says, I'm healthy, good to go, he takes BP, he plays at the end of spring training, does that flip-flop for you or you're staying true?
Yeah, if anybody paid attention to my ranks prior to the injury, I moved Corey Seager above Trey Turner. So I had that. And that was actually kind of a tough one because even though the speed seems to be ticking down a little bit, he still stole like 30. And the bat is, if Trey Turner can make that adjustment where he's going to be like, oh, okay, hi, I'm this guy that steals a bunch of bases, but now I'm also going to hit, and then the bases go away and he's going to hit for more power. The hard hit numbers better. I think we can stomach that if he goes from a 20-40 guy to a 30-30 guy to a 30-20 guy, it's good. But Corey Seager's batting average is elite of elite. The homers through the roof, RBIs to the right. Marcus Semien hitting in front of him is phenomenal. So I love Corey Seager. He's just got injury stuff in the past. And then you go and have this, was it the hernia surgery? And he's probably going to DH when he comes back. It's more to me than him just being like, yeah, I should be good for opening day. Like this was a serious thing that he did. I don't think I can make the move pretty much no matter what. But in my tout league, I took Corey Seager in the third round. I started Corbin Carroll, Pete Alonso, it's OBP, so huge speed, huge power, and then I went with Corey Seager in the third round, who's an OBP monster. Yeah, it's a huge value.
That's especially in an expert league too. That's a huge value. All right, let's get to the second round. I've got Garrett Cole starting mine with Luis Robert, Albies, Francisco Lindor, and Austin Riley. You've got Bryce Harper, Spencer Strider, Austin Riley, Garrett Cole, Vlad Guerrero Jr. popping in there. I feel like I'm too low on Harper. I've got him outside this. He's at 21 in this next grouping there. Again, pretty much usual suspects for the most part. But I keep looking at second base and what Ozzie Albies gives me, what everybody else gives me at that position. And I can't quit him. And I was the highest on him probably than anybody last year. I'm still high on him this year. So in your opinion, Welsh, because you've got him in this lower grouping coming up in 20 plus, do you think that he should be a top 20 player, or are you still outside of him on
Albies, right? Not Harper. We're talking about
Albies,
yeah, I think he's right in that territory. I don't know if I'm like insanely optimistic that he's going to like reach another level. Part of it actually also becomes about, and I had so many drafts early on where I took Ozzie Albies was like a cornerstone for some reason of a lot of my drafts. And then I would move through and I'd go, boy, I really like where Gleyber Torres is. And boy, Ketel Marte is still there. And even on a certain build, I go, Andres Gimenez really makes sense for this team because I took a lot of these power hitters. And at second, I kind of like the position. I like some of the later depth. I have to be disciplined about it because I think it is stupid to be like, well, I'm not going to take him because I like a lot of these other guys, blah, blah, blah. But then you screw up and you don't get them. But from the Bryson Stott, there's so many stolen bases to be had that if I'm given the opportunity for a bat like Bryce Harper specifically, who, baseball savant is red as red can be, walk numbers way up, expected WOBA top 3%, 7 percentile expected slug, and a 290 batting average, that an expected 290 batting average to go along with all these big, crazy hard hit numbers. Bryce Harper's coming back. We're going to get like first round Bryce Harper coming again. I can't take Ozzy Albies over him. And then when you look at those little tiny factors, the position, I feel a little bit more comfortable with what I can get later at second base than I do specifically first base. Or in some instances, I actually think like Luis Robert versus Albies is even kind of a fascinating one if you're trying to, if you're playing a 5 outfielder and you're like, ooh, I might screw up outfield. Robert, you're going to get those stolen bases.
17. Robert at 17. So I'm a little higher than most as well. A little higher than you too. Looking through the rest of these, it's pretty much the same players, just a different order. After Vlad, you have Devers, Luis Robert, Corey Seager, Lindor, Albies, De La Cruz, Alonso, Corbin Burns, Michael Harris, and Gossman. Now, I don't have Harris. I don't have De La Cruz. So some of the different names for me as I'm going through here, it is after Albies at 18, Lindor at 19, Austin Riley at 20, then Harper, Alvarez, Marcus Semien, who I want to talk about in a second, then Devers, Gossman, Corbin Burns, maybe a little pitching heavy here, then some other people, Trey Turner, Vlad Jr., Pete Alonso, and Zach Wheeler. Semien's the one I want to bring up because you've got De La Cruz in there, which is a huge leap of faith. And it's almost like the hitter version of the Aaron Nola argument we had at the top of the show. This guy scored 100 runs for the last 5 years. The only year he didn't was, guess what, 2020, when it was the pandemic year, right? 123, 115, 101, and 122. He has driven in 100 runs 2 of the last 3 seasons. He has stolen 14 bases or more 3 seasons in a row. He's hitting somewhere around that 265-ish range. That's probably what we're looking at. Like, when do we start thinking about Marcus Semien and giving him more respect? I feel like this is almost the exact same argument of the Aaron Nola, just the hitter version, where he's there, he's in a tough position, he produces, it's a good lineup. Like, what am I missing? Why am I so much higher on Marcus Semien than the consensus?
I don't think you're really missing anything. I actually think I would just come back to exactly what I said about Ozzy Albies. He's great. Like, I'm down with Marcus Semien. Okay, then how do you put De La Cruz over Marcus Semien? Because you do, and again, I love Elly De La Cruz, the player, but that is a huge leap of faith on a player because at his best, he is one of these Marcus Semien seasons this year, and I think that's a bridge too far for my personal ranking. Well, part of it is I think Elly De La Cruz is going to steal 50-plus bases this year. I think we're going to go
the dynamic of this argument.
Yeah, well, I mean, the guy stole over 30 bases while hitting barely 200 this year. So if in a full playing time and if projections are going to live up to anything in the batting average where he hits 230, 240. Also, he goes on and he just did an interview at camp where they were asking, do you like to hit homers or steal bases more? And he's bases, loves stealing bases. I think he's going to steal 50. I think he's going to be one of the most aggressive base stealers in all of baseball this year. So if he can hit 240 and he steals 50, he's going to walk. And if he hits 230 or 240, by the way, I know that's not good. He's going to walk into 15 to 20 homers. So you have a legit shot at a 20-50 guy who might have some stinky batting average. I think the runs and RBIs can suffer, but that's the thing. Marcus Semien is just going to be, his average isn't awesome, but he's just going to be kind of consistent across the board. You're going to get these high extremes with a guy like Elly De La Cruz, and these are different positions. So this kind of comes back again to my, like, where do you like to pick and choose on the risk reward? Elly De La Cruz, in my mind, is a player that can set you over on stolen bases while producing in other categories. But I do feel like Elly, like O'Neal Cruz, like Jazz Chisholm, like Trout, like any of those guys, I do feel like I'm now a little bit more cognizant of what's going on in my draft, and I have to was it like walk on glass a little bit more? Like, I feel like I have to be more careful.
Please, yes. Oh, can you please have a Welshism here?
What was it like the?
Are you walking on broken glass? Is that what you're trying
walking
to do?
on sunshine? Like, what's the where you're being careful? What's the thing where you're being careful and you don't want to?
I don't know, Welsh. What is the thing when you're being careful?
What's the thing? What's the saying? Is it like I'm walking on eggshells? Eggshells. It's eggshells, not glass.
Walking on broken glass is an Annie Lennox song. So, and I know we're the only baseball podcast who made an Annie Lennox reference today. I can guarantee you.
I'm walking on sunshine, guys.
The rest of these, again, your second round mine's very similar in terms of the players, just a couple of different orders here and there. But I will say too, like I think I respect that you have Michael Harris in there. I think I will be moving Harris in. The problem is who I'm moving out, which is probably Zach Wheeler at 30. And that's probably a change I'm going to make. So the two changes that I'm going to make after this conversation too with you too is Harper. I have to move Harper up a little bit, and I got to move Harris into that top 30. I'll probably bump Wheeler for that, but I got to tell you, man, I think Marcus Semien deserves more love. He should be in the top 30 for everybody, maybe even top 25, because I have him 23 overall, and I just keep looking at it. Again, the position he plays, the productivity, the consistency. I think it's that same thing where, you know, you make fun of me about Alex Bregman all the time. Is Alex Bregman all world? Is he as good as Semien in fantasy right now? No, but man, that floor is just underappreciated, and I'm sick and tired of people just not appreciating it.
If you don't have Marcus Semien and Alex Bregman on your next mock draft team that we do, or real draft or whatever, I'm going to be disappointed.
Well, speaking of disappointment, let's get to our starting pitcher list here. Now, it's pretty much the same, actually. To be honest, we both have Strider at 1. We both have Garrett Cole at 2. I've got Gausman ahead of Burns. You've got Burns ahead of Gausman. Why do you have Burns ahead of Gausman?
I mean, I love the move. We talked about that on the pitching guide. I love the move.
Splitting hairs, right?
I mean, it's a little bit more ballpark friendly. I love the organization. I love the offensive support. I think everything around is an intangible. Not to say like there's a lot of weird clouded Burns and the Brewers and not competing. Like you're going to be in the competition in a pennant race the entire season long. It is a tougher division. That's something to consider. But I think Corbin Burns is still towing the lines of like being a really elite pitcher. And Orioles have done really great things with pitchers in general. So if they do get their hands on him at all, maybe he's tinkering around. I feel like he's in really good hands. So I'll jump back into like another 250 strikeout, season for Corbin Burns. So I think he's easily the number 3.
I'm going Gausman over Burns because I think Gausman's going to have more strikeouts than him this year. Same division. It's going to be tough either way, but Gausman last year with 237. I think there's a better chance he gets back to 230 than Corbin Burns, who's sitting at 200 last year. And again, it's 30 strikeouts. This is not a small amount. It's kind of like that Freddie Freeman argument with Matt Olson. We're talking about a big difference here. Like these are difference makers in these levels, especially in season-long roto. After number 4 is done, number 5 is Zach Wheeler for both of us. Number 6, of course, you have George Kirby. I have Luis Castillo, his teammate. At 7, I have Pablo Lopez, which you also have Pablo Lopez. At 8, I have George Kirby. At 8, you have Luis Castillo. So we just flip-flopped our Mariners. By the way, everybody, the Mariners, I think, have the best rotation in baseball, and I'm going to keep talking about this and saying it. I've already bet them to win the American League West because of that rotation, and I think it's going to help Julio get to MVP as well. So
it's a possibility.
I'm going to be Mr. Mariner this year. I might have to go get me like some Mariner swag, like some serious Mariner swag.
I like the Trident that's like this Trident, the little orange one that's on there.
Man.
Yeah, Trident is really cool. By the way, I wanted to point out
the Detroit Lions won a playoff game. I think the Seattle Mariners can get to a World Series. 2024 is going to be a fun year.
They got the rotation and the bullpen for it. The thing that keeps floating around for me is like, I think Matt Brash could end up being like the biggest surprise closer if they were to give him that job with that sweeper. I think that team is in a good position with a good bullpen, good starting pitchers. But I wanted to add something that works in your favor.
Injuries happen. You got Gilbert, you got Wu, you got Bryce Miller, you got all these guys here, and more to come.
Yeah. Going backward just a tiny bit, when you said Gausman over Burns, I do want to point out our buddy Ariel Cohen's ATC projections agree with you. If you believe the like actual number, like the, like 213, they have Gausman at 213 strikeouts versus Burns 210. And the innings are actually 6 more innings for Corbin Burns. So ATC favors your argument on Gausman.
All right, so after we switched our Mariners, you've got Gallen, Castillo, and Glasnow. I've got Kirby, Glasnow, and Gallen. So, again, pretty much the same guys. Everybody knows I'm a little lower on Gallen because of the innings thing. I want to ask you one question here before we close out the show, and I'm going to give my answer too. Who's the one guy when we look up that cracks this top 10 that's not in our top 10 right now? I know I have my answer. Do you need more time to think about it? Because I can give mine.
Why don't you start with yours? I got quite a few names.
I'm going to go simple here. Now, Nola was a guy that I just, talked about. He's only at 12. I'm going to go a little deeper, have a little bit more fun. Freddie Peralta last year threw 165 innings, struck out 210 guys. If he throws 180 innings and he goes to 220, he's going to be in this group. The ERA was a little high, 3.86, but some of the deeper stats are still pretty good. The WHIP was 1.12, was very solid. I think the Brewers have to believe in Freddie Peralta to have made this Corbin Burnes trade, because I don't think that they're throwing in the towel. I think they're just saying, hey, we've got to restructure what we're doing here. So if they believe in Freddie Peralta, I think everybody else should. I think he's a player that's going at a discount and should not be. I think he is a fantasy ace, and I'm okay with him as my fantasy ace. I know some people are not, but I am. Welsh, is there a name for you not in this top 10 you think is going to crack it?
Yeah, there are a few guys that jump to my mind that aren't going to be picked, like Bobby Miller was one of those, but there's kind of an innings cap. Yamamoto was in there. Joe Ryan. Those are a few of the guys that I immediately thought of. Joe Musgrove, I would throw it as well. But the guy I'm going to settle on is Logan Webb. Logan Webb, I think, is one of those, just simply because the guy is going to absolutely eat innings. He had over 216 this past year. Really, really low walk numbers. If George Kirby can do it, Logan Webb coming at a better cost, he absolutely can as well. Ballpark factors work pretty decently. It's going to be a pretty tough division. The difference that holds him back is probably the strikeout numbers overall, but you got a great closer. You got a solid offense around, but this is just a guy that can continuously maintains a really low ERA, doesn't walk guys, and if the strikeouts come up, I think he could creep into the top 10.
So here's what we want you to do. Now that you listen to all this, go to fantasypros.com/mock or just download Draft Wizard and put it on your phone and go start running some mock drafts with this information we're giving you. Create your own cheat sheets. Use cheat sheets in the draft software to, take Welsh's rankings, my rankings, whoever's probably Scott Bogman and Mike Mary might be better off with theirs. But
How
still,
did that
take
happen?
all the rankings.
What happened?
I don't know. We're doing an investigation. It's going to be a whole thing. The draft kit is also available for free. fantasypros.com/draft kit. Go there, check it out. Start to get prepared, because pitchers and catchers are here. We have baseball. It's already started. Like, we are rocking and rolling right now. So get ahead of everybody else. Run the draft simulations. Sync your leagues. It's free. Sync your leagues. Check out the tools. And then if you want to go premium, you can, to unlock all the other ones and get your draft software hooked up to all of your drafts so that you are more prepared for everybody else to make the best decisions, because the draft is just part of it. Draft Wizard is there to set you up for success, and then my playbook is there to take you through the rest of the season. So go ahead, use the tools here, Fantasy Pros, and I don't just mean me and the Welsh. And let's subscribe to the channel, drop the comments, win a Jazz Chisholm jersey. So again, subscribe, drop a comment, you might win a jersey, and you might see us with the mustaches again this year.
Hair
plus wigs. So that's doubling down.
So here's a question. Do we do like long hair hippie wigs, or do we do like George Washington?
I think we do a whole thing on social media where we have a couple choices and we let them choose, or maybe we do it for our Discord people. FantasyPros.com/chat. Man, one of the pluses of joining Discord, you get to choose the wig for Joe Pisapia in a
Mr.
poll.
Potato Heads. Maybe, you know what we should do? Can we get an interactive tool where we could have us, and then they could just put like hair and mustaches?
That might be pushing the production team a little far. I think we might have to just be going to Spirit Halloween and getting some wigs. I think
I have big aspirations. Well, no, I want them to be able to figure out what they want us to look like, and then we have to go get it.
Aspirations after all these years.
I want Mr. Potato Head like Welsh and Joe Pisapia heads. That's my aspirations.
All right, let's get out of here before we walk in any more glass or eggshells. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Class. All right, bye. Bye-bye.